Beijing financial crisis, government borrows to pay salaries. Xi faces tough challenge, China's new energy sector in trouble. 35th anniversary of June 4th incident, Tiananmen Gate Tower closed all day, tight control over universities. Former spy makes first appearance at Falun Gong rally, exposes CCP's dark tactics. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Beijing financial crisis, government borrows to pay salaries. China's economic situation is worsening, with an escalating financial crisis forcing many local governments to borrow funds to pay their civil servants and sustain operations. There have been widespread reports of unpaid wages affecting various public sector workers, including civil servants, teachers, medical staff, bus drivers, and sanitation workers. In Beijing, the capital and political center of China, the situation is particularly dire. Residents report that the government is unable to pay civil servant salaries without borrowing from other districts. This issue results from financial reserves being depleted during 3 years of strict zero-COVID policies, while the Chinese government has been massively and lavishly spending money abroad. The financial strain is not confined to Beijing. For instance, residents in Swifen City, Heilongjiang, report ongoing salary defaults for several years, with local governments resorting to borrowing from temples and businesses. Similarly, small towns in Chongqing faced severe financial difficulties, with local governments borrowing from hospitals to fund operations and salaries. Moreover, the financial strain extends to the banking sector, with some state-owned banks facing difficulties and resorting to lending money to their own employees to pay salaries. This situation reflects the broader economic challenges and fiscal crises facing various regions in China. Xi faces tough challenge, China's new energy sector in trouble. On June 3, the Nikkei reported a stark warning from Yao Xiaodong, the Secretary-General of the New Energy Vehicle Industry Alliance in the Yangtze River Delta. During a meeting convened by the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers, Yao stated that Chinese electric vehicle manufacturers face a critical choice: expand operations overseas or risk going bankrupt. This perspective contrasts sharply with the optimistic view presented by CCP leader Xi Jinping. In May, during a speech in Paris, Xi claimed that China's new energy sector showcases advanced production capabilities, enriches the global supply chain, eases global inflation, and contributes significantly to combating climate change and fostering green transformation. He asserted that China does not have an overcapacity problem. However, the reality within China tells a different story. The country is home to at least 77 car manufacturers and 129 car brands, a saturation that experts deem excessive, even for the world's largest auto market. Concerns about overcapacity were also discussed in a confidential meeting in Shanghai in May, attended by a Vice Minister of Commerce of the CCP and various experts. According to an anonymous participant, the experts debated whether the high volume of exports is heavily reliant on state subsidies. The worry extends beyond China's borders. With Chinese consumers unable to absorb the production output, the US and the EU fear that the CCP might sidestep international trade norms to dump subsidized, cheap exports into their markets. Most of China's electric vehicles benefit from local government subsidies and low-cost loans from state-backed banks. Qin Jiwu, a finance professor at the University of Hong Kong, pointed out that these subsidies have prompted many underqualified companies to enter the green energy sector. Without such financial support, he warned, many of these firms would likely collapse much sooner. Despite production cuts, China's auto industry still sounds alarm. According to Nikkei Asia, Lisa, a newlywed, found employment at Li Auto, a prominent electric vehicle manufacturer in China, but worked limited days due to production cuts resulting from weak sales. The company informed over 1,000 workers they could either resign or continue working for minimum wages until conditions improve. Despite such measures, overcapacity alarms persist in the automotive sector, exacerbated by a stark drop in factory utilization rates. For instance, car factories' utilization plummeted to 64.87% in the first quarter of this year, with new energy vehicles recording just about 47.5%. Leading battery manufacturers predict even lower future rates. In response, Li Auto scaled back its sales target significantly and initiated layoffs, affecting 18% of its workforce. The broader industry's reluctance to downsize suggests potential intensifying conflicts with Western nations, which perceive China's cornerstone industries, like automotive, at risk. Amid these challenges, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen called for international cooperation to tackle these industry issues, emphasizing the risk to global business viability if a unified strategic approach is not adopted. Meanwhile, China's exports of the new triad, electric vehicles, lithium-ion batteries, and photovoltaic products, are projected to exceed 1 trillion yuan, about $138 billion, in 2023, marking a 30% increase from the previous year. Boosted by robust electric vehicle exports and significant sales to Russia, China overtook Japan in 2023 to become the world's largest car exporter. This shift occurred as Western car brands exited the Russian market due to the Ukraine conflict, prompting Russia to import more than 900,000 vehicles from China. This situation is not new. Over a decade ago, when Western nations raised concerns about overproduction in sectors like steel, Chinese leaders, including then-Premier Wen Jiabao, pushed for the development of the service sector to stimulate economic growth. These policy shifts helped pave the way for the rise of internet giants like Alibaba and Tencent. However, Wen's initiatives and the supply-side structural reforms later introduced by Xi Jinping were largely aimed at boosting the profitability of state-owned enterprises. A senior researcher at a Beijing think tank commented that while Beijing cannot tolerate continued losses in state-owned enterprises, it is less likely to exert similar pressure on private firms in the electric vehicle industry. Professor Chen Zhuo highlighted that despite supply-side structural reforms, China's industrial capacity has actually been increasing due to the reliance on manufacturing to develop technological capabilities and compete with the U.S. This intense competition has led to decreasing profit margins, compounded by weak domestic demand and the yuan's depreciation against the dollar, increasing the drive for Chinese companies to export. Although the CCP government typically prefers businesses to stay local to boost growth and employment, it may actively promote the establishment of Chinese manufacturing facilities overseas. Xi Jinping encounters a troublesome problem. A top executive at one of China's leading electric vehicle (EV) battery manufacturers has spoken out about the absolutely undeniable overcapacity issue plaguing the industry, especially among producers of lower-end batteries. He said that while some level of overcapacity is necessary to keep up with the rapid pace of innovation, there is a shared belief that smaller players, and potentially even some within the top 10 manufacturers, could face shutdown by the end of next year. Such closures could reduce overcapacity but also complicate matters for Beijing's policymakers, who are gearing up for the CCP's third plenary session in July, aimed at deepening economic reforms. Recently, Xi Jinping emphasized the importance of prioritizing high-quality employment, especially for young workers, in industries like electric vehicles that employ millions. Wang Guanghua, director of the Institute of World Economy at Fudan University, observed that financial difficulties for local governments mean some business failures are inevitable. He pointed out that the real issue for China is not overcapacity but insufficient consumer spending. Firms unable to find domestic buyers are forced to set up operations abroad to survive, a move one described as a choice between expanding overseas or going bankrupt, a decision that could affect China's GDP and job market. However, international expansion isn't a panacea. As previously reported, poor sales in Europe forced Great Wall Motors to close its Munich office, and other battery makers scrapped expansion plans in Germany. One suggests that boosting domestic consumption through increased household incomes is the solution, although it will be a slow and challenging process. Meanwhile, Li Auto employee Lisa expressed her concerns about resigning, which would free her employer from any compensation obligations, leaving her desperate to find new employment to avoid financial ruin. 35th anniversary of June 4th incident, Tiananmen Gate Tower closed all day, tight control over universities. June 4th this year marks the 35th anniversary of the 1989 Tiananmen Square incident. According to Hong Kong's Ming Pao, in Beijing, security measures are intensified with the Tiananmen Gate Tower closed for the entire day, and the D exit of Tiananmen East Station on Subway Line 1 also shut down. Voice of America reported that ahead of the anniversary, several Chinese websites took measures to prevent users from changing their profile pictures and nicknames around June 4th, reflecting ongoing restrictions by the Chinese Communist Party. Despite the CCP's tight control over the internet and social platforms, some individuals commemorated the event by changing their profile images to lit candles. Attempts to alter profile pictures and nicknames on major Chinese social media platforms like Weibo, WeChat, and Xiaohongshu, a Chinese platform similar to Instagram, were blocked, with notifications about system maintenance or upgrades. Popular online games like World of Tanks also took similar actions, disabling chat systems and nickname changes from June 2nd to June 6th. Additionally, terms like 35 years and 35th anniversary are under strict scrutiny on Weibo, with only posts from official accounts being displayed for these searches. The anniversary is considered a sensitive day by the CCP. Leaked screenshots from overseas social platforms indicate that universities in China have been instructed to closely monitor students' thoughts and prohibit all group activities. All class activities are required to be reported a week in advance, and religious activities and the formation of religious groups are strictly banned. An anonymous participant from the 1989 student movement confirmed to Radio Free Asia that these notifications are issued annually. Especially around the June 4th anniversary, authorities mandate university administrations to exert strict control over students, with this year's 35th anniversary seeing even more rigorous enforcement of these measures. According to businessman Zhang Xingqi, these internal alerts are distributed not only within educational institutions but also across businesses, government departments, and other enterprises linked to the Chinese Communist Party system. They emphasize the need for discretion and restrict careless speech to prevent political backlash. In commemoration of June 4th, cities across the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand host memorial events annually. These gatherings serve to commemorate the victims of the June 4th incident and to remind the international community of the importance of remembering these events. On June 2nd, in Flushing, New York, which is home to a large Chinese community, the China Democracy Party and various groups organized a significant rally to mark the 35th anniversary of the 1989 democracy movement. The event was charged with chants like "Never Forget June 4th" and "Down with the Communist Party," as participants condemned the CCP's past atrocities and commemorated those who died in the Tiananmen massacre. They also voiced a strong call for the end of CCP rule. At the rally, Wang Huntao, co-chairman of the National Committee of the China Democracy Party, emphasized the importance of broadcasting the authentic voices of the Chinese people to the world, stressing that the Chinese Communist Party does not represent China. Chinese political commentator Chen Pokong highlighted the fear that June 4th instills in the Communist Party. He noted that the CCP becomes extremely vigilant and anxious each year on this date, as it symbolizes the eventual downfall and accountability of the party. Chen urged Chinese people around the world to persist in their resistance against the CCP, advocating for unity and continuous struggle. Background of June 4th. On April 15, 1989, the death of Hu Yaobang, the former General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party, sparked a memorial event by Beijing University students in Tiananmen Square. This gathering quickly grew into the most extensive democracy movement in China's history. From the evening of June 3 to the early hours of June 4 that year, the Chinese Communist Party deployed over 200,000 troops to enforce martial law and bloody suppress the movement violently. The troops, using tanks and armored vehicles for cover, opened fire on the unarmed students and citizens of Beijing, resulting in numerous casualties. This brutal crackdown is internationally recognized as the Tiananmen Square Massacre. In a significant disclosure on October 20, 2017, the UK National Archives released diplomatic files from 1989. A report from Hong Kong 01 revealed that according to Sir Alan Donald, the British ambassador to China at the time, the 27th Army of the CCP, responsible for clearing the square, engaged in gunfire, leading to an estimated death toll of at least 10,000 civilians. Additionally, Hong Kong media examined the June 4 files housed at the Bush Presidential Library in the United States. These documents, described as internal CCP documents obtained through Chinese informants by the U.S., indicated that over 10,000 people were killed in Beijing during the incident, with the total number of casualties surpassing 40,000. Former spy makes first appearance at Falun Gong rally, exposes CCP's dark tactics. From June 15 to 18, CCP Premier Li Chang is scheduled to visit Australia. Coinciding with his visit, on June 4, Falun Gong practitioners gathered in Canberra to urge the Australian government to help end the 25-year persecution of their followers in China. Eric, a former spy for the Chinese Communist Party, who escaped from China to Australia last year, made his public debut at this rally. He stressed that the CCP views anyone who threatens their power as an enemy, regardless of their identity. He detailed the CCP's attempt to abduct Li Guixin, a Falun Gong practitioner in Thailand. The intricacies of the secret police's arrest were shocking to the victim, and these secrets are still largely unknown to the world. I plan to gradually disclose these details. Eric worked as an undercover agent for the Political Security Bureau from 2008 until early 2023, an agency often described by Australian media as the most formidable and frightening part of the CCP's intelligence network. He has a keen interest in history and believes that this helped him more easily recognize and understand the CCP's true character. Eric considers the CCP to be fundamentally a fascist authoritarian organization. He explains that the party, which grew out of the Soviet Communist Party, is full of bad deeds, constantly carrying out political movements and killing many people. He suggests that anyone familiar with history would find it easy to identify what kind of system the CCP truly is. Last year, Eric escaped from China and supplied Australian intelligence with documents revealing the inner workings of China's infamous Political Security Bureau and their efforts to capture dissidents abroad. As previously reported, Eric spoke at a high-level national security forum attended by Australia's Minister of Defence and others last Tuesday, exposing the existence of over 1,200 CCP agents and informants in Australia, which again caught the media's attention. He believes his efforts have made a difference and further urged Western societies, including Australia, should gain a better understanding of the CCP and the nature of its regime. This can be approached in two ways. Firstly, the regime's authoritarian, fascist nature needs to be clearly recognized and guarded against. Secondly, more awareness and vigilance are needed regarding its covert and illegal operations overseas, particularly in the Chinese communities. He also expressed a desire to contribute more significantly to these efforts. Since June 4, the CCP is approaching its demise. On June 4, 2005, Chen Yonglin, the third secretary of the Chinese consulate in Sydney, publicly declared his break with the CCP at a June 4 rally. 19 years later, on June 4 this year, Eric also made his debut at a public gathering at the Falun Gong rally to protest against the CCP's oppression. Eric sees defections from the CCP regime as commonplace in communist countries, describing them as a response to the regime's inherently distorted and anti-human fascist nature. He noted, "It's quite normal for people who desire a regular life and the freedom to speak out, to sever ties with the Communist Party and distance themselves from it." He further elaborated that he had always maintained a distance from the CCP, never fully integrating with it. He views the CCP's current state, from the June 4 incident to today, as being fraught with internal and external strife and sharpening contradictions, suggesting that the regime is in its final stages of decline and nearing its end. He continued, "In our struggle to topple the CCP's fascist regime, the journey is fraught with danger and many have fallen. However, those who have fallen should not deter us. Instead, they should serve as symbols of inspiration to keep moving forward." Eric also expressed his conviction that our efforts will undoubtedly succeed. Despite the severe oppression and risks, countless people continue to stand up and resist persistently, with the unyielding spirit of birds seeking freedom, courageously pressing ahead. Don't forget to leave a comment in the section below to share your opinions on today's topic with us. Make sure to like and subscribe to see more interesting topics from China Truths.